So I want to share with you just something before we start today's episode, because I feel like it kind of ties to that and everything that we talk about, um, in terms of making everything we say land a little differently. And we're
Yeah.
recording this week, and my family is navigating, some health uncertainty with my father-in-law. And so my husband, being an only child, is really, and having two aging parents, is really being pulled to be there and be present somewhere
Yeah.
else. And
Yeah.
it pulls me to really hold everything at the house together. And, it lands on me, and I don't mean this as like wanting sympathy, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not, the kids are grown and they are self-sufficient in a lot of ways, aside from being an Uber driver. And we've talked about capacity. It definitely impacted that.
Yeah.
And you have to cancel plans, and I've got to do some things. And so this week and the last couple weeks have been really hard. And this happens to us, right? Where things happen and it
Yeah.
ends up, what is crazy is, as much as maybe I look at my schedule and I'm able to sort of shift and make changes to capacity so I don't feel so overwhelmed, it's still this invisible labor.
Yeah.
It feels like something in real time that's like weighing me down. So, someone I love is needing to be somewhere else, and I am kind of quietly absorbing the other pieces of it. And nobody told me to do that. And I'm not resentful about it either.
Yeah.
It just something that is now on my list. And it is exhausting. It's exhausting for all of us. And so it gets to be really hard, and it's hard to explain unless you've really lived it. And that is the one thing that I'm realizing. I think so much of this in different seasons of our lives or different experiences. So I think today's topic is really meaningful to me. It's real. It's not something abstract.
Yeah. I just want to say I see you, and I
Thanks,
think
Jess.
everyone. Lord, I'm like the most emotional person. Justin told somebody last week that I cry during ketchup commercials.
I
So,
neglect my emotions,
I
so it
know. So
works
I'm
out well.
crying for you.
Comes and goes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think everyone else listening who has ever been that person, the one who absorbs it all when life gets hard, like they're going to feel this episode in a different way today, because it's not like there was like this list. It's like, yes, okay, Brian usually picks up Beckett. I will get him too. But it's also this heavy emotional labor that we're talking about. And I think, like, you and I joke about that reel, that we talked about, like that reel that says,
All the
right,
emotion, all the labor. Yeah.
all the hardest part about adulting is having to figure out what's for dinner the rest of your life. And it's like funny because you're thinking about dinner, but it's not just the dinner. You have to plan the dinner, shop for the dinner, make the dinner, clean the dinner. And so that's not on the list of to-dos. And so there's all of this stuff that kind of landed on you, right? Not
Yeah.
just kids and logistics and things like that, but also emotionally. Now you're the one that has to tell the kids the news that your husband gets, and then manage maybe they're feeling out of sorts because there's this unknown and someone they love isn't doing really well, right? And so I think that gets to be difficult. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome back to Chasing Brighter. I am Jessica.
And I'm Kelly.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're talking about that invisible labor, the unpaid job that nobody puts on your resume, the work that holds everything together. And this isn't about the sort of sympathy or anything else that we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
just,
It's not
let's
woe
just
is
get
me.
real.
It's just,
Yeah.
this is real. This is our life. This is what's happening. And I think a lot of this stuff, if we don't hold it, it doesn't get held. And that's what we're talking about, that way, that
Yeah.
the work that never makes it onto the job description, right?
And I even wonder sometimes as if some of us are even like really aware of that being
Yeah.
part of it, right? Is like
Yeah.
sitting back to be like, wow, this feels different. I don't know why. And there's this
Yeah.
invisible
Yeah.
labor that's there.
And I've said to you even recently, I know I found out about the word emotional labor, invisible labor, unpaid labor, the second shift, probably really starting hearing it being verbalized in around 2017. But still to this day, surprisingly, I will tell a client, like, it sounds like you're really overwhelmed by the invisible labor and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. So let's dive into that, Kelly. Let's define invisible labor and what it actually is.
Yeah. It sometimes, so invisible labor sometimes is called mental load or cognitive labor. There's a lot of different descriptions for it, Jess. Unpaid, unacknowledged work of managing or coordinating logistics of a household or a family. And the keyword is managing. And it's not just about doing tasks. It's about knowing that tasks exist, anticipating and planning and following up. And it's all this mental architecture that holds it together. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing for me is that I find, to me, when I am experiencing this sometimes, what I'm finding lately is it's like, what have I done with my day? Somebody asks
Yeah.
like, oh, what did you do today? And I would be like, laundry, or you know what I mean? Just like,
Yeah.
it feels like that's why it's invisible, because it feels like it's taking up a lot of time and maybe you don't feel like you have something
Yeah.
to show for it, you know?
Well, and like mental load and invisible labor, one of the things I think about with invisible labor too is it's like what you're saying is it's like I saw this thing, and again, this is kind of like heterosexist a little bit, but when you think about like the man's job, barbecuing, mowing the lawn, that's very visible. You're seeing the lawn being mowed. You're seeing shoveling the driveway. You're not seeing the mom making the doctor's appointments. You're not seeing like the laundry appears in their room clean, right? You're not seeing the grocery plant. The groceries appear in the fridge. They're not seeing getting the birthday gift, planning the thing, doing the thing. And so that resonates too. And also mental load, right? Just this load on us all the time. And for me, the mental load hits in podcasting, right? The podcast planning is such a perfect example, right? The content, the arcs, the coordination with you, the research,
Mm-hmm.
it's real
Yeah.
work that lives
Yeah.
entirely in our head. No one sees this, right? Same with my practice, managing a solo practice. I'm the clinician, the administrator, the scheduler. I'm the one paying the bills. I'm the one thinking about what my practice needs 6 months from now. That is an example, and it's for me, it's not about my marriage necessarily. And I want to talk about that later, but it doesn't have to be about I'm married with kids and it's this thing that only women married with kids experience. Absolutely not, right? If you run a
Yeah.
business, if you work, like there are so
Yep.
many
Yep.
ways in which we are struggling
Yes.
with mental load.
We are all like career women or moms or sisters or
Yeah.
children and daughters. And there's all these different aspects of our lives that,
The roles we play.
yes, exactly. And, the research on this, Jess, is pretty consistent, as you know, which is the
Mm-hmm.
load still falls disproportionately on women, as you describe. And even when both partners work, even when the mom works and the dad's at home helping, it all is the same. A lot of it tends to fall on the woman. And maybe a lot of that is just how we kind of
Well,
know
and
the role we
like we're
play.
saying, the doing can be shared, but the
Yes.
knowing often isn't, right? So it's like I
Yeah,
follow
that's a
this
great
guy,
way
he
to
called
say it.
himself like a recovering man child, and he would be like, oh, and I follow a lot of women on this, but like if the husband's like, oh, well, just tell me what to do, just tell me what to do and I'll do it, that's great. But having to think about what I need to do is a mental task, right? And so that's how we can see the tasks might be shared, but maybe the mental part of it isn't, and real quick, if what we're talking about today is landing for you, we made something to go with it. It's a free download called Are You Living Your Values or Someone Else's? And it's a quick values clarity guide with 5 honest questions and 5 tips for actually living more aligned. And it is free when you sign up for our newsletter.
And that's at chasingbrighter.com. So grab it. It's worth 10 minutes. We love it.
Yeah. So
So,
let's shift.
yeah, let's talk about, what does carrying this weight actually do to a woman over time? Because I want to talk about the identity cost, which I don't think gets enough airtime. And that's what we were kind of alluding to earlier.
Yeah. I think resentment. There is a specific kind of resentment that builds when your contribution goes unseen, and it's not pettiness. Clinically, it's a signal. It's what accumulates when something is chronically out of balance and uncorrected. And that self-concept piece is one that doesn't, that that does the most damage, right? That self-concept, when so much of your energy goes into maintaining other people's lives, your own projects, your own needs feel like luxury items, and then they get cut out of the budget, right? And I think for me, I built a lot of resentment, and didn't know this was happening when my kids were little. But I do want to say, for my partner, Justin and I will be married 25 years this year. And I think the story is worth telling, because around 2021, which is crazy because we were already married 20 years at that point, something really shifted for us. And I had been talking about the mental load a lot, but Justin was like, he does at that time, he was doing more than any one of my friends' husbands. He was doing more than anyone. So he was like, you don't have the mental load because I do all these things. But I was like, it was still the mental load, right? He was one of those partners is like, if you tell me to do it, I'll do it, which is wonderful and incredible. But I was resentful having to tell him. So a lot of things shifted for us in 2021. And he started doing the laundry. So an example of mental load, real quick, we had 3 nannies for our children. And if I
Yeah.
would say, can
3
you get
different
a
ones over time.
sitter? Yes. If you want to get a sitter, he would say, what's their number? So he didn't have the number of the babysitter. So that's just like, I don't know, that was always something that just like was like a little dig into me. And so that was an example of where we were. And so he started doing the laundry. He made the doctor's appointments and took them to the doctor's appointments, scheduled the doctor's appointments. He does everything. He puts everything in the family calendar now. He carries a real portion of the mental load right now. And I share that because it's possible. It didn't happen overnight. It took
Mhm.
real work, but it happened. It's not a small thing. And one of the things I know you and I are doing, we each have 2 boys that we're raising, is we're going to raise sons that are aware of that they're like to understand what it takes to get all of these things done. My partner, I believe yours as well, came from a very traditional household, right? Where like
Yeah.
the mom did everything
Yeah.
inside, the dad everything outside. Mom took them to
Yeah.
birthday parties,
Yep.
did the planning. And so I want my children to understand what it all takes. And so some of that too is like reprogramming generationally. And so that's why I share my journey of how it took 20 years of us working together, being parents for 13 years to figure out how we can navigate that together.
I think for me right now is my freaking kids. They're old enough to help
Yeah.
handle things as well. And
Yeah.
so really trying to navigate that with them. Obviously, my teenager Wes is a lot easier on that, and
Yeah.
he can pick up the slack. So, quietly managing this at home for weeks and nobody else knew that I was managing that or like what I'm doing. And I
Yeah.
don't, again, this is hard. I think this is hard for us because we just handle it and we keep going. And I'm not saying this as like a Kelly, I'm so
Right.
sorry for you. I don't want
Right.
any of that. I don't need that. It just
But
is.
I think it's important that you're doing it, you're in it, you're holding it, and you
Yeah.
don't have to pretend you're fine.
Well, and even just saying it feels like you're kind of like letting
Yeah.
it out there in the universe.
Right.
And it almost feels lighter just saying it now
Yeah,
and
and
being
don't make it
honest about it.
invisible anymore either.
Yeah.
Like, tell the
Yes.
boys, "Hey, listen, your dad's been at the hospital back and forth. Like, I'm trying to do this, this, and this," just so they can know, "Oh my god, I didn't even realize that you're doing this,"
I'm
you
getting
know?
a lot more okays instead of no's. It's
Yeah.
time for you to undo the
Yeah.
dishwasher. No. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of nice. It's not always that perfect, but
Yeah. Yeah.
really, I think part of that is trying to navigate I'm feeling this, putting it out there. And then,
Yeah.
because I think we always jump to solving something. And sometimes there's
Yeah.
not a solution here. I
No.
have
Yeah.
this, it's happening.
Yeah.
We've named it. It sucks. We'll get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you're saying, just naming it, and then at some point, after you've made it visible, you can tune into yourself, and start thinking about maybe ways that there can be transition, right? And that's probably
Yeah.
why it took us 20 years, because I didn't even know what the heck I was feeling and why I felt resentful. I didn't even know what was happening. And now we have the tools and the words for like, this is why I'm feeling this way, right?
Yeah.
And I think let's look at what our brighter move is for this week, right? What is something that you can do? So I would like this week, right, for our listeners to find one thing on your list that you've been managing alone and ask for it to be shared. Okay, not handed off completely, just shared one calm, specific request. That's it. Start there because if you're not in a partnership, Kelly, you have a brighter move that will help anybody, regardless of whether you're in a partnership or not.
Yeah. So it's what I'm calling a mental load audit. It'll take about 15 minutes, which sometimes feels long, but it really won't take more than that. And it's really just writing down every single thing that you're tracking or managing or holding in your head. You don't have to edit it, just blurt it out there. And when you list it and look at it, you can kind of see, like, is it that you're doing? Because we all are holding so much. And we've got to sort of give ourselves that grace that, like, we are taking on a lot and just being honest about it. And for me, doing this, then it was also, I want to lighten my load.
Kelly, you're totally right. Like for you, you've been doing the work. You've already noticed, saw, identified what's happening. And so now you're ready for actions and the next steps. You know what I mean? And I love that. I love that. And I think that ties into next week where we're closing out April. In April, we want to do something a little different. We're each going to share a hot take on everything we've been talking about this month: energy, capacity, invisible labor, all of it. We're not going to be softening it. No caveats, just what we actually think. And you don't want to miss out on what we're saying,
Yes. Yeah. Because we have thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go, don't forget, we put together the free download. It's called Are You Living Your Values or Someone Else's? And it's a values clarity guide, 5 quick questions, 5 tips. What do our listeners find that?
Yeah. So just go to chasingbrighter.com and sign up for our newsletter.
Thank you so much for being here. If you want to see what we're up to, what we're buying, what we're wearing, follow us on our socials at Chasing Brighter.